Good evening, and I'm Nikki Rattenbury from Heart of the Southwest Trading Standards Service. We're welcome to one of our rural support and wellbeing webinars this evening, run by Future Farm Resilience. Tonight's topics are disease control, contingency, and wellbeing. If Sam, if you could pop onto the next slide, just to say that obviously this is a Teams webinar, and on the screen now is just a few bits to show you if you would like to add anything into the chat during this evening, or you would like to unmute yourself. There's a button with a microphone that you can do that. The cameras are automatically disabled just for the purposes of the internet connection. But if there is any reason for you to want to come on screen, I can obviously put the cameras back on. But yeah, if you could go to the next slide, please, Sam. If there is anything this evening that you would prefer, because the evening is being recorded so that we can share it with anyone that has been unable to make this evening, if you would like anything omitted from the presentation this evening, if you could please just contact Samantha Younger on the email address or the phone number provided, then we can remove anything, your name or anything that you want to talk about this evening that might be personal to you. We can have that removed from this evening. Okay, next slide, please, Sam. And tonight we have a series of speakers, actually. We're quite lucky. We've got Charlie Campion, Bryony Baker and Claire O'Connor from the Rural Health Matters. We've got Chris Rice from Heart of the Southwest Trading Standards, and we have Elissa Owen from the DPJ Foundation. And if you're ready, Charlie, it'd be great if you're happy to begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. I'm just trying to share my screen, so please do bear with me if I get this wrong. Is that full screen for everyone else?
Yeah, we can see that. Thanks, Charlie.
Fabulous. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So hello, everybody, and thank you for coming to our presentation. We're from Mental Health Matters, which is a national charity, and my name is Charlie Campion. I'm the External Affairs and Policy Manager. Pass over to my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Bryony, and I'm the Assistant Manager for the Mooring Service in Devon.
And hi, I'm Claire, and I'm the National Helpline Manager for MHM.
Done the hellos and welcomes. I think we skipped that slide. So a bit about Mental Health Matters. I say we're a national mental health charity. We have over 40 years experience in delivering high quality mental health services. We originally started out up in the northeast of England, and now we provide a range of services from Northumberland to Devon to Kent across the country. Our support services range from helplines through to NHS talking therapies, to employment support and crisis support services, all based upon the same principle, which is enabling people to reach their own goals and aspirations. We actually offer 3 crisis support services across Devon, the moorings where Bryony is based, which is commissioned by the Devon Partnership Trust. Our purpose is to provide innovative, life-changing mental health support for individuals and communities. Our vision is that everyone can access support for their mental health to live in a meaningful life in a society free from stigma, which is part of why we're here today. Above all, our values are that we're compassionate, we're accountable, we're collaborative, and we're proud. So what we're here to talk to you today is about our rural mental health campaign and what we're doing to actually support people with mental health, but also gather data to enable better policy making. So as a national mental health charity, as I mentioned before, our experience has allowed us to identify that there's community-specific barriers and challenges in rural areas. And we decided to undertake a campaign to learn more about the experiences of people living in rural communities and help be part of the solution by addressing them. We started off in July by launching our Rural Mental Health Survey, which remains open until Monday. So if you have the opportunity to fill it out, please do. And why we did this, there's a lot of national drivers to this picture. So the House of Commons Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Committee found that there was a significant gap in data on rural mental health, and these data challenges prevented the committee from being able to draw many conclusions and make substantial recommendations to the government. This means that the policy changes are harder to justify to Parliament and government. This will also affect the targeted funding streams that are established or expanded upon when it comes to the budget. The last major national survey done in this area was by RABI in 2021, and it only targeted farming communities. The survey, a bit about the survey. So it seeks to understand the experiences of people living in rural and farming communities and any barriers they face. We've got specific questions in there about transport challenges and digital isolation, which we know is a specific problem in the Southwest as well. The survey has been promoted by many channels, including social media. High-profile figures have promoted it on their personal social medias, and we've been physically attending county shows around the country. We'll be publishing a detailed report based on our findings in the winter. Oh, skipped ahead. Place-based promotion. So as I mentioned about the North Devon County Show was the last one we actually attended in August, and there's our award-winning Mental Health Matters team, fresh on the back of winning a PPIMH award for all of their work in Barnstable and in Exeter and Torquay. I'm going to pass over to Bryony, who's going to talk through some of the specific Southwest.
One who lives really rurally amongst the fields and the cows and the farmers, you all may be aware that 90% of Devon is actually considered rural, with 10% of the population living in little cosy corners, hamlets and isolated housing. We have identified from our services that, people living rurally do suffer with isolation and loneliness, which has a significant impact on their mental health. We've also identified that because people living rurally, there is that transport challenge, and often that can be of a costly amount. So that obviously brings barriers to people using services.
Next slide, sorry.
I
froze up, that's my bad, sorry.
No, it's fine. So as you may be aware, there are over 6,000 VCFSE sectors within Devon supporting those of mental and physical health. The Moorings Mental Health Matters in Devon provide mental health support, and that can be to support anyone in rural areas and farming communities. Our services run from across North Devon, right up at Barnstable, down to Torquay in the south of Devon, to Exeter. Our Torquay and Exeter service are open all year round, and you'll be able to access times for the Barnstable services on all our websites. So in July, Mental Health Matters launched a national rural mental health helpline, and this is 24 hours, 7 days a week, and for anyone that is over the age of 16 living rurally.
Now over to Claire to talk through the helpline.
Yeah, our helpline at MHM already runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in certain areas for different individuals and communities where it's commissioned. Our helpline is an accredited helpline, and it was decided as part of this rural mental health campaign to use some of our fundraising money to fund a pilot within the helpline specifically for the rural community, and that is support that's available, and I'll talk about the support in a moment, to anybody over the age of 16, as Bryony said, who's living in a rural or farming community anywhere in England. As I said, our helpline is an accredited helpline. Our staff are highly skilled with lots of training, counselling certificates, etc. And individuals can call that line just to offload, just to get a little bit of, a sense of relief for things that they're suffering. that's the number there. So please do take it down, and please use the number if you want to, or pass it on to anybody else. We you know, it isn't anything specific. Like if somebody maybe rang a statutory mental health service or a crisis service, there'd be an expectation that somebody's in a specific predicament that needs urgent support for. But people don't have to do that for the mental health rural line. They can just ring because they want to chat about if they're feeling low, if they're feeling anxious, if they're just struggling with something, if they want a little bit of help with practical advice that might be affecting them, their well-being as well. And you know, Bryony said earlier about loneliness and isolation, and that is the vast proportion of people who use our helplines use it for that reason. And sometimes it's just a lifeline of somebody to be able to chat to if they don't have a huge support network around them, or there's things they don't want to share with individuals. So I would encourage you, please, to take that number down and do share that number. And as I said, it is 24/7. There'll be somebody available on that line 24/7.
Thank you, Claire. So what's next? We're going to launch our report into rural mental health in the winter, as I've said. And from there, we're going to look at establishing digital roundtables with key stakeholders in government, parliament, local authorities, health leaders, and we are welcoming people who are living in farming and rural communities with personal experience of mental health challenges. I think those lived experiences are going to be incredibly key to sort of driving that change. I think when parliamentarians and councillors or whoever hear them personal experiences, they're often moved by them, and that's what drives the change. With regards to our helpline, we'll continue to review the effectiveness of it, and if needed, seek out long-term funding streams that enable us to continue to provide the support. The Moorings Devon, which Bryony has sold so well tonight, next month our area manager Nee will be back to give even more details on the Devon crisis services that we provide and how they can be accessed. So what can you do? Well, we want to hear more from people living and working in rural and farming communities. If you'd like to be part of one of our focus groups to help shape what our helpline offers to those communities, please contact us via the email listed there, externalaffairs@mhm.org.uk. I'll put it in the chat after we've finished presenting as well, and that'll be picked up and we'll be in touch as soon as possible. Please do complete our rural mental health survey and share it in your communities and networks. I'll also put a link to that below, and spread awareness of the helpline and the support that is currently on offer for rural and farming communities at MHM. At this point, I'm just going to open up to questions. You can see all of our socials there as well. I cannot see the questions while I'm sharing, so I'm going to stop sharing as well, if that's okay.
So I've just had a look in the chat. I'll just double check that I haven't missed anything. But so far we don't have any questions in the chat, but that doesn't mean there won't be any. So if anybody has anything that they would, please just take yourself off mute and go away. I'm sure that they'll be happy to accept any questions.
Hi guys, it's Sam. So yeah, sorry, I've got a couple of questions. So can I just clarify, you are happy to get contacts from people that need support as long as they're over 16 years old, is that right? So you cover all, like adults and young adults as well, so not children?
Yeah,
perfect.
That's correct.
And is your work just in Devon, or do you go national, or is it just a Devon based?
Yeah, for the purpose of if this rural mental health campaign and the pilot line that we've set up is for the whole of England.
Oh, okay. Because obviously for us with trading standards, we cover Devon and Somerset. So it's useful for us to know that it works for both counties and areas of work. Perfect.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Please pass that on.
Has anyone got any other questions? Well, I just wanted to double check. Oh, did you have a question?
Hello.
Yes,
yeah, sorry. Just
that's okay.
It's only a very quick one. It's just I was picked up my phone to put your number straight into my phone for when so I have it to hand, and I didn't quite catch it before the slide moved on. So I just wondered whether you could read it out to me again.
Of course I can. The number is 0300.
Yeah.
034 9984.
9984.
Yeah, I feel like
Lovely.
a radio show host doing that.
Thank you. You know what it's like. If I didn't do it straight away, then I would, my brain would move on to something else. So thank you very much.
Of course, thank you.
And did you say, Charlie, that you were going to put it in the chat, the link to the survey? Was that right?
Yeah, I'll do that now, and also put my
Amazing.
contact email in there as well. So if anybody wants to get in touch at all with me, they can do.
And we need to complete that survey by the 16th of September. Is that right?
That's right. Sorry for the tight turnaround.
That's okay.
But we have we want to get it out by the winter, so then it'll be ready for the new year, and we can start pushing for the funding before the new budget comes out in March.
No, I totally understand about budgets and deadlines and everything. That's absolutely fine. I just wondered, you were talking about sort of links with making sort of round tables and kind of gathering stakeholders together so that you could, talk about kind of how we can make things better. And I wasn't sure if I mentioned to you before about our Trading Standards Farming Partnership, because my colleague Sam can probably tell you a bit more about it because she heads it up. But basically we've kind of started that a few years ago, and we've got a pool of I think it's about 100 people on it now.
It is 100 people, yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to just say a little bit more about it, Sam? And then Charlie and that might want to be members of it, actually.
Yeah, so for anyone here listening, we've got a partnership of members of about 100 people now. It consists of anyone who has any involvement in the rural community, as in like the farming community, not just based on people who live remotely, but the agricultural farming industries. So we have different people like the police, the rural team, we've got the fire service, we've got APHA vets, we've got private vets, we've got hauliers, we've got drovers, we've got market staff, we've got collection centres and farmers themselves and counsellors and things, and lots of different support services. So we just try and get them together and provide support within those communities and share information within the industry itself. And we do newsletters. We try and do face-to-face visits when we can, and meetings and training and support in that way. But unfortunately, since COVID, that's not happened as much as we'd like it to have happened. So those kind of things we try and get involved, and this is where we bring in our rural support and mental health support in through that as well with our work at Trading Standards.
Incredible. And I know I'd definitely be keen for us, and I'm guessing Bryony's eyes were lighting up a little bit there from a safe haven perspective.
Yeah, so that would be something that obviously on another day, give me a call or an email or something, and we can have a chat, and we can add you to our mailing list and our contacts, and then you keep in touch of what's going on. And in our newsletters we share things that other people want to include, so it's just sharing information, new support, what's going around, and what kind of topics are out at the moment and areas of trickiness going on, just so we're all aware what's happening in other people's sectors in the same industry.
Incredible. Yeah, we'd love to be part of it. Thanks so much. I'll bob my email and chat as well.
Perfect. But that goes for anyone listening as well. So anyone from the farming community, if you feel like you want to be involved in what's happening in the industry and you want to be part of it, then obviously more farmers is definitely a target going ahead for next year, is trying to get some more farmers to join. Good. Thank you.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thanks, Sam. And thank you to Charlie, Bryony and Claire. I don't know if we have any other questions before we move on, but I think you might be free to go. But you're welcome to join us for the rest of the evening if you would like to. But I also totally understand it is an evening. So if you would, you're very welcome to carry on with your evening if you would like.
Great. Thank you so much.
Can I just add that if nobody has any, if anyone has any follow-up questions, please just send them in. If they didn't want to ask them necessarily today, and just please send an email. Charlie's give you his email address, so just send them in. And if there's anything to do with the helpline as well and about support that you might get, I'm more than happy to answer those.
Perfect.
Oh, thank
you.
you, Claire.
Thanks so
That's
much.
brilliant.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
No
Good
problem.
evening. Cheers. Thanks.
Take
Bye.
care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, well, we're now going to move on to Chris Rice, our Trading Standards Officer for this evening, who's going to cover some disease control and contingency questions and a presentation there.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully my slides are loading and will be popping up on the screen anytime soon.
I can see them, Chris. They've cut the first ones up.
Can you?
Yeah. Can you not see
Usefully,
it?
I can't see my own slides,
Oh.
which is really helpful. Let's see if I try
weird.
and do it a different way.
Is that because we're both trying to share the screen?
I'm not sure. Well, let me go back out and try again.
I can see yours.
Yeah,
No.
me too.
Now they're there, so we're good. They've now loaded on. The system is very slow here in County Hall this evening. So thanks for asking me to come along. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Chris Rice. I'm a Trading Standards Officer based in Exeter, but cover the whole of Devon and Somerset. I've been doing that for well over 15 years now. I take a real interest in animal health and animal feed. That's my two main areas. And hence why I'm giving you a bit of a presentation on disease control and a little bit on contingency. So hopefully that'll be linked in with the slides that I show you based on what I'm going to be talking to you about. So hopefully if I press this button, we move on to the next slide. Has that worked?
Yes.
Brilliant. That's good. So we should be okay. So I had a think when Nikki and Sam asked me to come along and have a chat and talk to everyone tonight. I sat down and tried to work out what the biggest threats were to us down here in the southwest, and I came up with these 5. Blue tongue particularly is very much on the horizon at the moment, and it will probably move this way as we go along through the year. Avian influenza, it is not forgotten about, and it's there. It is in the background, and we've got no doubt that will be back anytime soon. TB is a long-standing issue. African swine fever is one that is relatively new to us. It's not in this country at the moment, but it's gradually moving westwards across Europe. So there's a good chance that it might jump across the channel and affect us. So I'd like to speak a bit about that. And the last one was sheep scab. Now, the difference between sheep scab and the others is that sheep scab is not notifiable in England and Wales, but it is in Scotland. So it's not a notifiable disease, but it does have a huge impact on farmers and the productivity. So that's what I decided to try and speak to you about. So the current virus that's in the UK, it's down in the southeast at the moment, is blue tongue serotype 3. It's a notifiable disease caused by infection with the blue tongue virus, and it's basically come across the channel from Europe. It affects sheep and cattle. It affects deer and goats and other camelids such as llamas and alpacas. So everybody gets a little bit nervous about it. And the approach to it this year has been very, very different compared to what they've done in the past. But we'll talk about that as we go along further. So it doesn't affect any food safety. It doesn't transmit across into people, so we don't need to worry about it that much. But what it does do is have a devastating effect on the livestock if it gets into a flock or herd. And the impact of that is quite dramatic. So our first case was in the UK was on the 26th of August. As of the 4th of September last week, there were 15 cases. That has now, I don't know how many there is now, but that has hastily moved on this year compared to this week rather than last week. And in those areas, the contingency plans have been put into place, which means local authorities and APHA have worked and they've restricted the movements of animals within that area to make sure they can get a grip on the disease, work out who's got what and why, how they've got it, and then try and control the disease. So as it stands at the moment, this blue tongue virus 3 is rife in Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg and Germany. It's also in quite a large part of France. Apologies, I'm just trying to access my notes. It's also moved into Denmark and Germany over the last month, and Switzerland has picked up its first case for some time as well. So it's something that's really widespread across Europe. It's not just affecting us here in the UK. And the approach at this time has been somewhat different to what we've had in the past. Just because an animal is testing positive with blue tongue, it's not automatically being culled, which has happened in the past. They're trying to treat the symptoms, and the only animals that are being culled, as it stands at the moment, are those that are deemed to be suffering. So the treatments aren't working, and they can't get on top of the disease, so they have to kill it on humane grounds rather than disease control grounds. So what do we need to look for when we're looking for blue tongue? I've just on the screen now will be a list of the symptoms. I don't need to read through those. I'm sure everybody can have a look at those. But the main ones are the animals just suddenly get a bit lethargic. They are clearly not doing very well. It's sore for them to eat. They're struggling with to breathe occasionally. It has an effect on lambs. It has effect on unborn fetuses. It can lead to abortion, and ultimately it can cause death. Usually that's not because necessarily the blue tongue virus is causing the death, but it's the impact of the symptoms of that virus that means the animal can't eat and it can't drink and it can't survive. In cattle, again, very, very similar types of symptoms. Again, just generally the animals look down, it's clearly not very well. And then the big difference between sheep and cattle is that a cow can hold the virus for a number of weeks before it shows any signs of anything. Or a good, strong, healthy cow might not show any signs of having blue tongue disease at all, the blue tongue virus at all, but it may well still be within your herd with the illness, and then any midges that are in this country could be biting that one and then sharing it with other animals. So it's something that they're looking at in the southeast at the moment, and they're testing loads of cattle. They're also testing the cattle that are coming into the UK from hotspot areas in Europe. So as part of the post-import checks that the APHA are doing, they are sampling those animals and testing them for blue tongue, and if there's any problems, they will then deal with that and follow it up. So if you suspect your flock has got blue tongue, what do you do? Well, essentially, you just need to call APHA. You need to let them know straight away that you're concerned that your animal might have blue tongue. They'll send a vet out and they'll take loads of samples and send it off, and they'll confirm whether it's an issue or not. What I will say is you should also contact your private vets and have a chat with them, because they will be directly involved with any treatment of the animals as they go forward. So if an animal has got sores in its mouth, or it needs a little bit of a boost or something, or it's got a secondary infection, all that sort of thing, that'll be dealt with by your private vet. So it's worth keeping them in the loop as to what's going on as well. So that is blue tongue. I don't know whether anybody's got any questions about blue tongue before I move on to avian influenza at all. I'll take that silence as a no.
Yeah, there was nothing in the chat so far, Chris.
Brilliant. We can deal with stuff at the end if we need to as well, so that's fine. Now, I forgot I added this slide in. So here we are. What can you do to prevent blue tongue? You need to make sure you're thinking about where you're getting your livestock from. So at the moment, I wouldn't buy anything from the southeast. Well, you shouldn't be allowed to buy anything from the southeast at the moment because it won't be allowed to move. But you need to be thinking about that, particularly as the disease spreads. You need to be thinking about the proximity of that livestock to where the disease outbreak is, and think about whether it's a sensible decision to bring that livestock down to your area. You need to make sure you're looking out for signs of the disease. You need to make sure that animals in buildings are kept out, particularly at key midge times. Now, I don't know about you guys, but there's certain times of the day when you sit out in the evening and the sun's starting to go down that the midges start biting if you're sitting outside, and it's the same for animals. So if you can get them in, if you're particularly worried about your animals, you can get them in and protect them from those midges and the disease, hopefully. Keeping on top of good hygiene and biosecurity on your premises, that's going to be a huge part of all of my presentations tonight. A lot of the protection of your livestock will be based around making sure that your premises is clean, tidy, and you've got good hygiene practices in place. A key bit for what we do to try and control the disease is tracing the movement of animals. And in order to do that, for cattle and sheep, there's national databases that all the movements are entered on, and we can trace them and we can follow things through movement books and things. For other types of livestock, so alpacas and that type of thing, you don't have to record those movements. So it's really important that, particularly at the moment with this disease in the country, that you know exactly where your animals have been moving to, and that you've got a clear record of that. So if the rest of your alpacas go down with TB, with blue tongue, you'll know where those other ones have been sold to, so that you can carry out some tracing tests on those and make sure that the ones that you've sold on don't have it, and it's not something they've been holding on to for a while. Again, don't let your dogs and cats eat any after birth or anything like that. That is where it can be transmissible through that, and it can affect the dogs. And then make sure your animals are vaccinated with a suitable authorized vaccine, which is easier said than done. And then when I was reading this, I was trying to work out whether there is a vaccine. There are loads of vaccines for blue tongue, but not for the specific strain that we've got in the UK at the moment. So you cannot vaccinate for that, but you can vaccinate for the other ones that are rife in Europe, such as the serotype 8, which is in France, Germany, and is just as likely to pop across. So you can get that. You can just talk to your local vets about that. So in a very similar vein, I've decided to speak about avian influenza. There's quite a few changes happening with avian influenza at the moment. It's definitely high on our radar here in the southwest. It always is. It's always going to be something we need to be aware of and need to be thinking about. So what we're asking people to do is to remain vigilant, practice again those tight biosecurity measures that we spoke about before, which we'll go into a bit more detail. But also try and protect your birds from access from wild birds. So when you're feeding the animals, the guidance is to keep them in. It's not law anymore, but it is the guidance. If that's not possible, when you're feeding the birds, make sure you're feeding them inside, and make sure you're feeding them in areas where wild birds don't have access, or if they do have access, that you regularly clean it so that there cannot be that build-up of feces and things. So there's the list of symptoms for avian influenza. You'll see there's a rather poorly looking cockerel on the side there. That is a bird that's affected with avian influenza. You can see that its cone is blue, and it just generally looks a bit sorry for itself. The head's swollen, the eyes are closed, and that's the type of thing that you're looking for. Anything at all that is with a chicken that doesn't look quite right, there is a reasonable chance that it's got something to do with avian influenza. And I can't say everything's going to be like that, because livestock's livestock, but you know what I mean. There is a chance that if you've got a couple of them that are looking the similar, that they may well have avian influenza, and you really need to worry about it and have a look further into what's going on. What can you do to protect yourself and to protect everybody else? Now, as of the 1st of October, it's a legal requirement that everybody with poultry has to be registered with APHA to say they've got poultry. It always used to be voluntary if you had under 50, but as of the 1st of October, everybody, whether it's one chicken or 50,000 chickens or any commercial poultry, must be registered with APHA. And that's a legal requirement. And my understanding is that APHA will be running some checks and checking that. The idea of that is to help us as an authority in the event of an outbreak. Now, those of you that aren't familiar with what we do, when we go out, when we get made aware of avian influenza outbreak, we'll know where the disease is, and then us as trading standards officers, so Nikki and Sam and all the other guys that are on here, head out and we look to see if we can find any more birds in that area that aren't registered, because they're under that 50 bird threshold that was there before. But now every single bird should be registered. We'll still have to look for them, I'm sure, but it will mean that it makes the burden on us as officers much lower, and it means that we can be reliant on getting information out to keepers as quickly as possible to make them aware that there's a disease issue in their area, and that you need to be really, really careful to make sure that you are protecting your birds as best as you can. So the way to do that is on the gov.uk website. I can share that later on. It's not in the presentation because I wasn't quite sure where it was at the time, but I am now. So I'll share the website for that. Yeah, make sure that if you've got any birds at home, they are registered with that APHA list. There will be some people that are registered with the voluntary one that we used to run here at Heart of the Southwest, but you still need to register with the APHA as well as that voluntary list that we used to hold here. Again, it's the same numbers if you suspect that you've got avian influenza in your flock of birds. Again, even if it's only one and you're not quite sure why it's died, we need to know about that information, because if it's in the wild bird population near where you are, it could be spread into lots of different premises. It could be rife in the wild bird section. They could then fly on to somewhere else and make it much worse. So we need to really know what's going on. So the sooner people tell us what's going on, the sooner we can take steps to try and prevent that spread of that disease. So African swine fever. Now this is a bit of a funny one, but I wanted to include it on the basis that I sit on a couple of different groups, and this is something that is constantly being talked about as the next major threat to the UK. So as you can see on there, it's in wild boar across much of Eastern Europe. It's in German forests in the wild boar there. It's down in Italy, and therefore it's on its way this way. So it started off in Asia and it's gradually working its way this way. So it's gone through Russia, it's coming in through the Eastern European countries. So it's gradually moving this way. What we've done as a country is taken a huge amount of steps to prevent that disease spreading any further. So there are restrictions on the import of meat from countries that have got African swine fever, just to make sure we do not import it through any carcasses or processed products that come in from those areas. So the key bit about that is to make sure that obviously if you visit the affected areas of Germany, that you don't bring back any products from that area to share with your family or anything when you get back. Again, these are the symptoms of African swine fever in pigs. Pigs are very intelligent creatures, as you'll probably know. They're very inquisitive, they're very active, and then any of these symptoms will be a little bit more noticeable immediately than they would be in sheep and cattle and in poultry. But you'll see, some of them, a sudden death with very few signs beforehand. If that's happening, if you get a pig that suddenly dies and you don't know what's going on, that's a real worry for us, and something that we would desperately be wanting to get involved in and have it, and just double check that there's not something else that's causing the problem. So again, it's about practicing strict biosecurity. I spelled practice wrong in there, but we'll leave that. Make sure you're wearing protective clothing when you're in with your pigs. Making sure you're cleaning and disinfecting your vehicles and equipment that you've used in areas where your pigs are. And the main thing, as for everything, is making sure that you do not use waste food or any leftovers to feed your pigs. It's vital for any disease protection, African swine fever, foot and mouth, that you're not feeding things that have had the chance of being in contact with meat. Anything that's been in a kitchen at all, whether it's commercial or private, must not be fed to pigs. So that is the biggest step you can take. Again, it's exactly the same numbers as before. If you suspect an issue, it's to contact APHA and follow their instructions. Sheep scab is one I mentioned before. Sheep scab is caused by mites living on the skin of the animal. It's really, really irritating for them, but it's so easily spread. And it's something that I am seeing more and more of when I'm out doing my inspections on farm, but also at markets. And the issue we've got is that some of the treatments that are there in place to treat sheep scab are becoming less and less effective because the mites are becoming resistant. They're becoming resistant for a couple of different reasons. One, we've been overusing them, but also we've been under treating. So we haven't given the animals quite enough of the medicine in order to kill the mites that are on their skin. So that means that the mites feel a bit woozy for a bit, or it gets slightly affected, but then their bodies manage to fight it off, and then they become immune to it. And that's starting to be a real issue. So you can see there the signs and things to look for. We do see it more and more at market. If you've got unexpected wool loss on your sheep and you are not sure, it's worth getting it checked, because scab and mites and other things it could be a mixture of different things. Doesn't necessarily mean you've definitely got sheep scab, but it's worth getting a test, making sure it's checked, because the impact, if you have got it, the impact on you is going to be quite severe. But if you manage to take it to market or to anywhere else like that, the impact will then spread to lots of different farms depending on where those animals end up. So as it shows on there, spread is by direct contact between sheep. So that's why having an infected sheep at market with sheep scab, it goes to market, it's in pens that pen up with back onto another 20 sheep that belong to somebody else, and they go off to 2 different farms. If they're right next to each other, you are going to infect the pen next to you. And sometimes at market, they might have access to maybe 2, 3 pens next to them. So we need to make sure we're worried about that. It can also be spread by clothing, but also what's on fence posts and field boundaries. It can be spread by that, and the mite lives for a considerable amount of time in those areas. So if you end up taking on a new piece of grass keep, or you buy a new field and it's got a heavy contamination of fleeces on the hedge, that's a sign that the animals that were in there before could potentially have had sheep scab. So have a look online, satisfy yourself that the amount of time that you want to leave your animals out of there before you put them on, because you don't want to bring the problem into your flock. So what steps can you take to reduce the chance of getting scab in your flock? Isolate new sheep for at least 3 weeks to monitor for signs of scab, and don't just chuck them in with the rest of your flock. If you do that, you can then get away with if that flock, then the new sheep do show signs of scab, and you can have them tested and they show signs. You've got 2 ways of dealing with it. You can then treat those animals just in that group, and you don't have to do your whole flock. But also then you can have a conversation about to the market or to whoever you've bought them from, hang on a minute, these sheep that I've bought have got scab, and then you can deal with that. You can have a conversation where you've got it from, and they can take a potential amount of liability for the fact that they've got the disease. If they've been kept away from the rest of your flock, it definitely can't be your fault. So then it gives you that chance to claim back from them some of the cost to treating the animals. If you find that they've got it, make sure they're isolated. Double fencing. So if you've got a neighbour's sheep that look a bit ropey and you're not quite sure whether they've got scab or not, it might be worth running an electric fence a couple of meters in front of your fence with the bordering farm to make sure that they don't get any chance of rubbing the same fence and sharing their scab about. Regularly blood testing. You can do that maybe once, twice a year, but you can have a chat with your local vet about that when they're doing your yearly health plans and things like that. You can have a chat with them, work out the most effective way of doing that. Again, obviously, a big thing for a lot of places is to have a closed flock. If you don't bring any stock in and they're not mixing with any other livestock, you're not going to have scab introduced to your flock. And then proper treatment, and that needs to be plunge dips or the injectable treatments. From our side of things, that's what we see as an effective usage of the treatments. The shower treatments that you get for scab don't get into the right areas of the animal in order to treat it properly. So make sure you're having a chat, have a chat with your vet, and make sure that you're clear on how to get rid of everything. You'll be glad to know that we're almost there and you don't have to listen to me talk much longer. The last one was TB. Now, TB is my pet thing. It's something that affects pretty much every farmer that I go and visit that keeps cattle, but it's also affecting plenty of sheep farmers, pig farmers, and to a lesser extent, but there's still problems within the alpaca and camelid areas as well. So I just wanted to put a little bit of information in there. I understand there's been one of these webinars regarding TB already, so I don't want to overdo it. So a bit of information about it there, how it's spread. And I want to just talk about what the current published control strategy is. There is a 20-year plan to get rid of TB in this country. We are right in the high-risk area down here in the southwest, and these are the steps that the previous government committed to following in order to get on top of the disease, and hopefully within, well, we're looking now about 12 years time, would be disease free. The current government are looking at everything again. They're looking at the strategies that we've been using, and I'm sure they'll change. But as it stands at the moment, these are the steps that we're taking as part of trading standards in our role of controlling the disease, but also APHA and DEFRA in order to try and control the spread of TB. So what difference can you make when it comes to TB? Now, I've said before and I'll say again, the main way you can try and reduce the risk of TB on your farm is to improve the hygiene standards of your business. And that comes from making sure that the areas that you house cattle or your sheep or anything are as clean as they can be. We're keeping farm animals, they're not going to be spotless, but we need to make sure we're taking regular steps to make sure they're regularly cleaned out, areas are regularly disinfected, that the feed that you're putting in front of them is clean and hasn't had access from pests and hasn't had access from wildlife. You're making sure that the areas that you're grazing your animals in have not got access to contaminated areas of your farm. So if you know you've got a sickly set of badgers, for instance, you probably want to restrict the access of your cattle to that area to make sure that they can't get access to that M. bovis that's causing it in the first place. And it's the same for your sheds. So if you've got a TB problem in your herd, you don't want wildlife getting into your sheds and picking that up from your cows and then taking it out into an uncontrollable source. So we need to make sure that everything we've got is thinking about stopping the disease moving from cattle to wildlife and from wildlife into cattle. But there's a website there, the TB Hub, that is a fantastic website, and it's got pretty much everything you could ever want to know about TB on there. Steps to keep your herd safe, ways to dealing with it if you go down with a breakdown, things to think about for your business to make sure that you are clear on what would happen if your herd suddenly goes down with TB. How would you cope? What if you haven't got enough feed? What if you haven't got enough housing space? What if you need to take something to market? All of this sort of stuff is on that website, and I can't sing its praises enough. It is absolutely fantastic. And that's me done. So has anybody got any questions?
That's brilliant, Chris. Thanks ever so much. I always think I know what I need to know about these things, and then it's always really, really good to have a refresher. Then you always learn something new, and you know it's always forever changing and evolving and different things happening, especially with TB. So I don't think we can ever talk enough about TB, to be honest. But I really appreciate you taking your time to do that. I know that you've got a lot of other commitments at the moment, so I am super grateful. And as everyone will be. You know, the TB Hub that you were talking about, can we join that? I know you've got the link on your presentation, but can we put that in the chat? I tried to click on it, but obviously I'm not sure how it works, but whether
I will share that in a moment. I will, okay. I'll log out of all of this and I can just share that link.
Because the people on it needs to go in the chat, I think, for us to for everybody to look back at it, doesn't it? To be able to know how to get in there. I'm not exactly sure how these things work, but I think that might be the case.
Okay, I am just sharing it now to make sure that everybody gets it. Yeah, so unless anybody's got any questions, I will leave you to it.
Has anyone else got any questions? Nope, I think you're free. The only thing I wanted to say, Chris, was about the sheep scab, and
Yes.
and if they want to, if people are concerned about having scab, they just go to their local vet and they will come, and it doesn't have to be AFA, does it?
No,
It can
no.
be their private vet, and they'll do the scrape test for them, won't they?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And they can blood test for it now as well, apparently. But the impact of sheep scab, again, it was a flying tour through everything. So the impact of sheep scab is quite significant. So if you've got a batch of lambs that you're trying to finish and they've got scab, they don't, because they spend so much time scratching and biting themselves, they're not grazing and they're not eating as much as they should do. So then they don't finish as well, don't finish as quickly, and then your costs go up. It can actually prove fatal because they just spend so much time worrying about how irritated they are that they don't take enough food to sustain themselves, so they gradually start getting weaker and weaker and weaker. So yeah, getting your private vet involved is really worth it, and it needs to be done really early on, and there's no point in going to a local merchants and buying a treatment for sheep scab, which you can do. You can buy it off the shelf without getting it tested first, because you don't know for definite that you've got scab. It could be a form of mite, it could be some sort of skin irritation, it could be an allergy to weeds. So getting your vet in means that you're treating the animal with the right product the first time. And I can't remember what it costs now, but I think for the injection, I think it costs about £1.20 an animal. And if you've got 100 sheep, it soon starts adding up, and it could be wasted money if you're not treating for the right thing. So definitely getting in touch with your private vet, getting them to come out, have a quick look at it, have a chat with them, work out what you're treating and the problem you've got, and then buying the right stuff afterwards is definitely the way to go. It will be otherwise it's a little bit of a gamble.
That makes sense. And also the withdrawal for the medicines can be quite lengthy, can't it? So
It certainly can.
If you end up treating with the wrong product first place, then you've obviously got a very long withdrawal, and then you've still got a problem. You then have to go through the situation all over again with a different product. So exactly that.
Yeah.
It is really important to get some veterinary assistance.
Yeah. And dipping is becoming much more popular again. Obviously, people are a little bit worried following the kind of the issues in the 80s and 90s with organophosphate. But there's loads of different dips on the market now which are safer. But then also there are companies out there now that will come round with a mobile dip, so you don't have to worry about buying the dips in. They'll do it all. They'll tell you how to dispose of it afterwards. And the withdrawal for dipping is much lower than some of the injections. So, but again, dealing with your local vet, they will know whether it's the problem and they'll give you some guidance where to find it. Find those dips or find those injections. They'll tell you the best way to treat it.
That's amazing. Thanks ever so much, Chris. And I don't think anyone's put anything in the chat. So I will let you go because you need to get home. So I appreciate your time. Thanks ever so much. Okay, and then we've got Elissa. Hopefully Elissa's presentation is ready to be shared. Were you going to share it, Elissa, or I think it was going to be Sam was going to, wasn't she? Yeah. Lovely. We'll just give her a couple of minutes. I'm sure she'll be there to do that.
Super.
Thanks for hanging around, Elissa, and waiting for Chris's presentation as well. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. It's interesting for me to listen to as well. So yeah, no worries at all.
Oh, good. Okay, I think it's just loading. Mine's screen's still white at the moment. I don't know if you can see it at all.
No, so is mine, and I'm a little bit worried by that. There we go.
Oh, there it comes. It's up now.
Like magic, like magic. Glamorous assistant.
Take it away, Elissa. Thank you ever so much.
Thanks so much. Thanks for inviting me along this evening. Yeah, I'm Melissa. I'm a farmer and I'm a volunteer with the DPJ Foundation. So yeah, appreciate you asking me to come along just to explain a bit about what we do and how you might want to get involved. So next slide, please, Sam. There we go. So We were founded in July 2016 by a lady called Emma Picton-Jones, and this was after the death of her husband Daniel, who unfortunately took his own life. And Daniel was an agricultural contractor, and his death kind of prompted Emma to find a way of supporting other farmers and the contractors, because she identified that there was a lack of support available to people working in the agricultural industry. So the DPJ Foundation was born, and it's grown from being a small charity that initially just offered support to members of the agricultural community in Pembrokeshire to now providing support across the whole of Wales. We have a board of 9 trustees, and then we're very much volunteer based. So we have a helpline which is run by Samaritans trained volunteers who all have knowledge of agriculture. They might be from a farming background or living in farming communities. So they have an appreciation for what farmers might be dealing with and what the struggles might be. And then we also have over 30 regional champions like myself who get out and about and promote what the charity is doing. So you'll see us out at shows. We go to various different talks and events, come along to things like this to make people aware that we're out there and what we're able to offer. And then we're all kind of managed together by a small staff team that's led by an amazing lady called Kate Miles, who's our charity manager. And then we also employ the services of around 50 self-employed counsellors across Wales to help us with some of our objectives. Next slide, please. So, you know, why are we needed? So, like I say, Emma identified when Daniel was ill and struggling that there was a lack of support services available, and statistics show that, you know, there are a lot of people out there struggling with their mental health. 1 in 4 people suffer with a mental illness at some point in their life. Next slide, please. And in agriculture, the statistics are quite stark. Agriculture carries one of the highest rates of suicide in all professions, with statistics showing that 1 agricultural worker a week takes their own life. And in recent surveys, 84% of farmers under the age of 40 believe that mental health is the biggest danger facing the industry. So that's quite a stark statistic, I think you'll agree. And that's why the work that we're doing at the foundation is so important to help with those mental health struggles. And another statistic was that whilst 2/3 of farmers say that they're physically fit, only around half would say that they're mentally fit. So we've got some way to go to break down that stigma around seeking help for people who are struggling with their mental health. Next slide, please. And here's just a brief outline of kind of the statistics around suicide in Wales. You know, I can leave you to sort of have a look at that yourself, but you know, the numbers are quite stark, and that's part of what we're here to do at the DPJ Foundation, is to help break down that stigma around suicide and to help prevent those deaths by suicide. Thank you. Next slide. So our objectives, like I say, were set up by Emma initially, and we still adhere to them today. So we aim to support people in the agricultural sector in Wales who have poor mental health. We want to raise awareness about mental health. We want to educate people about their own mental health and how to spot the signs of you know, poor mental health in other people. And we're there to provide support to those that are dealing with poor mental health themselves, but also that wider support network, so their friends, their families and colleagues who also might be struggling when you're supporting someone who's got poor mental health. Next slide, please. So one of the ways that we do that is we have our Share the Load helpline. So this is a 24-hour helpline, like I say, run by our Samaritans trained volunteers. We also offer a text messaging service because not everyone feels comfortable picking up the phone. So that's another way of people getting in touch with us. We're totally confidential, so there can be a worry in the agricultural community. You know, it's a very close-knit community, that people know each other, or that people might not want to reach out for help because they worry about word being spread around. But we only deal with first names, and we only deal with kind of areas that people are based in. We don't ask for any more detail than that, and everything is handled very strictly. So minimal people are involved in the process of getting someone referred to a counsellor if that's what they choose to do. So the help first kind of point of service is that we are a listening service. So if you just need to offload, if you've had a bad day, if you're just feeling like you've got a lot of stuff on your mind and you just want to talk to someone who maybe isn't close to you, it's sometimes easier to just offload those things to a stranger. You perhaps feel like you're not putting burden on a family member or a partner or something, then that's what we're here for. Day or night, someone can give us a ring and have a chat and just offload. And then the next service that we can offer is if you choose to want to go down the route of having counselling. We offer that service very quickly with a quick turnaround. So within 48 hours of making contact with us, we will put you in touch with a counsellor in your area, and that will be for an initial consultation. And then within 7 days, the counsellor will arrange an appointment with you. And we deal in English and in Welsh, because obviously there's a lot of first language Welsh speakers, and we design it so that the counselling sessions are as convenient as possible. So that might mean that the counsellor comes to the farm for a session, or it's done online, or it's done by the telephone, or the person might feel more comfortable going to the local town to meet with the counsellor. So we work around the situation with farming, because we know that it's not a regular 9-to-5 job, and it's not always easy to just drop everything and go to an appointment. Next slide, please. So one of the other ways that we try to build awareness and try to build a community network around mental health is in our training that we offer. And this is accessible to anyone. So if you don't live in Wales, that's fine. You can still join our training sessions. We run a lot of them online. So the aim of them is to, like I say, reach as many people as possible, to make more people feel comfortable and confident when dealing with someone who's struggling with their mental health. So we run a mental health awareness training program. It's our own bespoke program that we've designed so that it's specific to agriculture. And it explains how to support people who are dealing with poor mental health, and provides you with some practical tools and, like I say, that confidence to have those conversations if you're worried about someone. And then our other training session, which I was lucky enough to be involved in developing, is the Understanding Grief and Bereavement training. And again, that's in a farming context, and we look at those additional complexities that come along with a bereavement in a farming situation, and again, just help people to understand how they best can support people who are dealing with grief. Next slide, please. One other project that we're really proud of that we got over the line recently with some support from Welsh Government funding was a set of children's books. And this had been a big dream of Emma's from fairly shortly after she'd lost Daniel, because she had 2 young children, and she obviously needed to explain what had gone on, and deal with her own grief and her children's grief. So with input from Emma and from her children, we've been able to design these 3 picture books, again available bilingually, and the 3 stories focus on 3 different losses. So one is on the loss of a grandparent, one is on the death of a sibling in an accident, and one is on the death of a father to suicide. And they're being sent out to all schools across Wales as a resource for them to be used, but copies can be requested for anyone, again, not just in Wales, but in England as well. If you know of a family who have experienced a loss, whether there's children involved, then get in touch with us at the office, and we can certainly send out a package of books to help children with kind of understanding that loss a bit easier. Thank you. Next slide, please. So just before I finish up, I just wanted to finish with a little concept that we use here at the DPJ Foundation to maybe start you on the path of thinking about your own mental health and how we can manage our own mental health and look after ourselves. So we use the concept of the stress bucket. So we want to think that all of us carry around a bucket, basically, and we take on stresses daily, and that's like water filling up in that bucket. Next slide, please. And everyone's got different buckets. So everyone will have a different size bucket, and due to our different life experiences or the way that we're able to manage our stress, some people's buckets will be bigger, some people's buckets will be smaller. Next slide, please. And like I say, as we're going through our days, you know, a work day or a normal day, our buckets are filling up. There's always going to be things coming our way that are kind of adding to that stress. And, you know, some of those are on the screen now. So perhaps lack of sleep or financial worries. The weather obviously is a big one, particularly in the farming community. You might have had an argument with a friend or a partner or a colleague. There's work pressures, you know, you've got deadlines to meet. There might have been a bereavement. There's the constant paperwork again, particularly in farming, of keeping on top of. And all of these things are adding that liquid to your stress bucket. Next slide, please. And, you know, some will add more liquid than others, but eventually, if we don't do anything about it, our bucket is going to overflow. Next slide, please. But the good news is that we've all got taps on our stress bucket, and we can do things to open the taps to release some of that fluid that's gone into the bucket and stop it from overflowing. And the taps are basically our coping strategies that we can use and can identify. So we want to think about the things that we can do that help us to open those taps. And so, for example, for me, that's going for a walk, especially away from the farm. I like to, you know, get out and about and go hiking somewhere. Love exercise, so different forms on different days, but yoga, swimming, rowing. Luckily, I live by the sea, so we can take part in all these water sports. Or it might just be sitting and enjoying a cup of tea for 10 minutes, just trying to kind of take some time, switch your brain off, forget about your to-do list for a moment, and open those taps and let some of that liquid out. Next slide, please. So just before I finish up, obviously, you know, like I say, we're a Wales-based charity, although the helpline is available to anyone who needs it. You know, we're only able to provide the counselling to people living and or working in the Wales. But there are loads of other charities out there, having heard from the Rural Mental Health team earlier. Yeah, there's a vast number of charities out there doing amazing things. Just a couple to note on the screen here for anyone that's in England. FCN and the RABI are two great charities doing very similar work to ourselves in that they have a helpline and they can also provide access to counselling. So those are two to keep in mind. We always recommend downloading the Stay Alive app. It's a really useful resource. It's a suicide prevention app, so it can be helpful to support someone who might be thinking of suicide, or can help you to stay safe if you're having thoughts of suicide. And actually, you know, it's quite common, around 1 in 6 people will have thoughts of suicide at some time. So it's a great app for that, but it's also a great app because it's got a brilliant directory of support agencies, support organisations on it as well. So it's a handy little thing to have on your phone to find access to other numbers and organisations that might be able to help. Yellow Wellies, again, it has a brilliant directory on it of organisations across the country who can provide mental health support. And just then a couple of others to mention for younger people, Papyrus and Young Minds are two charities that help to support young people, and their websites are a great resource as well. So if you're concerned about anyone, then I'd recommend looking up those. Next slide, please. So just to summarise then of what you can do going forward from this evening, maybe think about the people that you know, and think about whether any of them might be struggling, whether you need to reach out to them, drop them a text message or give them a phone call and just check in and see how they're doing. Take some time to think about those things that I say that open the taps on your stress bucket, those things that help you to feel better, and also maybe identifying the things that cause you stress. And if you're able to do something about those, then great. Obviously, there's quite a few things, particularly in the farming world, that we're not able to control. So, like I say, understanding the things that open your taps that help release those levels in your stress bucket, and being sure to do those things can help maintain a healthier stress bucket. Asking your friends and family, how are you feeling, and listening to their answer, and maybe probing, asking a second time. We have a tendency to ask, how are you? and everyone's automatic response is always, I'm fine. But if you're concerned about someone, asking that second time and you know, saying, but how are you really feeling, can sometimes just be the icebreaker that that person needs to just open up and say, actually, I'm really struggling. And ask for help if you're struggling yourself. Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to, you know, give our helpline a call, give the helpline that was mentioned earlier a call. There is no shame in saying that you're struggling, and there's a lot of help available, and a massive difference. So please don't ever be afraid to reach out. And then I'd encourage all of you, if possible, to attend one of our training courses. We've got a couple coming up. I'm running a grief awareness course next week, and then there's one the following week by my colleague for the mental health awareness training. So you can check out our Eventbrite page, DPJ Foundation on Eventbrite. That's where all of our online training is listed. And like I say, it's free to attend and it's open to all. So I would encourage you to attend a course if you are able to. Next slide, please. And that's it. Yep, so I'm all done. Any questions, please feel free to let me know. But the numbers on the screen then are just a reminder for our helpline and our text line. And there's our website there as well, which also has got some really useful resources. And be sure to check us out on social media as well. We post kind of a positive message every day. So a lot of people find those are helpful as well. So yeah, thank you so much for inviting me along this evening.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Elissa. I know you're outside of our normal Devon, sort of Somerset, Dorset and Cornwall area, but I just think it's really important to give every organisation the opportunity. And, you know, some people are bordering Wales, or they might have relatives in Wales, and I just feel like it's just really important for everyone to know nationally what's going on and what's available to them. So so I really do appreciate you taking your time to come and talk to us this evening.
Yeah,
I
no
don't know
worries.
I don't know if anyone has any questions. There's nothing in the chat at the moment. Has anyone got any questions? Oh, it's quite quiet. I was just wondering about I saw that you said about the grief awareness course next week. And so if I go onto the Eventbrite page and look for DPJ Foundation, I would find it there, would I? Because I've done a mental health awareness course, but I was quite interested in the grief awareness actually.
Yeah, so it's a relatively new course that we've started running, but the uptake on it has been brilliant. I meant to say we've been able to train over 1,700 people in the last 3 years through the mental health and through the grief awareness course as well. So yeah, it's a 2-hour course, yeah, run by myself, and yeah, either through our website or yeah, going straight onto Eventbrite and just searching for DPJ Foundation and you'll find it come up. So it's on Tuesday at 1 p.m.
1 p.m. Okay, that's brilliant, because I like I say, yeah, just having that specific kind of information and awareness about grief in particular, because I do really think that does you know, some of the farms and things that we go to in the family situation, that is quite an impact that can prove to be quite tricky for them, can't it? So
yeah,
so I think that'd be really helpful to us.
Yeah, I think, again, because it's farming focused, it's identifying those added things that come along with being a farming family, not just having suffered a loss, but then the complexities of all the stuff that comes along with the farm needing to continue and all that kind of thing as well. So yeah, we've had great feedback on it. So it's hopefully being useful to people who are out and about and supporting or coming into contact with families that have possibly lost someone, and knowing how best to support them. And I, from my own personal perspective, have always had that awkwardness around grief and bereavement. So it's just, again, kind of breaking down those barriers and making people feel more confident in being able to have conversations around these things.
That's brilliant. And are you happy for, obviously, for people outside of Wales to join that course?
Yeah, yeah, like I say, we take people. I mean, we have international people sometimes as well. So yeah, we welcome all. There's no, you don't need to be based in Wales for our training.
Perfect. I think you're going to get a few sign-ups by tomorrow.
I will.
The other thing I was going to ask about was the Stay Alive app, and you mentioned that again. If I want to get access to that, I literally is it just easy to do via your normal app store on your phone?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you just search for it on Apple or through Play Store or whatever, yeah, whatever you use to find your apps, it's It's not the NHS that set it up, but it's some other organisation that's escaping my mind at the moment. So it's had a lot of positive feedback around that as well, because I say it's a very easy to use app, but it's got some really useful things on it for quick access if you're certainly worried about someone who might be having suicidal thoughts, but also, like I say, for finding those directories for helpline for, you know, if someone's dealing with an addiction. There's specific organizations that are focused on that kind of thing, and it breaks it all down very easily, and by region as well, for finding kind of local organizations that you can put people in touch with as well.
Great, that sounds really good. I'm going to look at that. So thank you for letting us know about that. I know myself and Sam have talked about the Hub of Hope quite a lot, and that was kind of a web-based page, but having an app, there's sometimes you can have access to a bit more information, can't you, quite quickly. So no, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And if nobody has any questions, then yeah, by all means, you are free to go, Elissa. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you ever so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That's brilliant. Well, that's the end of our speakers. And I don't know if anyone has any further questions for any of the topics that we've talked about this evening. But if you do, anything comes to mind and you want to get in contact with us at a later date, there's normally we put up our email address and contact details. There are some Future Farm Resilience slides which we show every time for each of the webinars, and that's because obviously they're just as a reminder of all the different things that are accessible through the Future Farm Resilience programme. There's transition workshops, one-to-one support, small group webinars, digital training, and obviously our wellbeing workshops. We've got up and coming webinars now. We're trying to run 2 a month until December when the funding runs out, trying to pick up on some topical things that we think you'd want information about, giving opportunity for the support services to have a moment to showcase what they have available and the services that they provide. So the next webinar, I don't know if those dates might be out
Those
of
dates are old.
yeah, those are the
On the
old
side.
dates on there.
They're just
But
examples.
the next webinar we have will be next week, actually, because we're normally trying to do them the first Thursday and the third Thursday of every month, but for different reasons it had to be the 12th for this month. But the next one is the 19th of September, same time on a Thursday at 6 p.m, and we have that's going to be about feed hygiene. So we've got a gentleman from Timoth Port who's going to speak, and also some colleagues from Trading Standards, Naomi Osborne and Rebecca Langdon. So that will be full of lots of information and guidance on feed hygiene. And I think we had a slide which was relating to some of the other events that the business innovation team are running. They're headed up by Kelda and Fion. Oh, that was a bit quick for me, Sam. Is the up and coming ones, so the 5th of October, the 10th of October and the 24th of October, all about the different different schemes that are running at the moment. These look like they are in person, one in the South Hams, and a couple in East Devon. But I believe if you go on to the QR code on Eventbrite, then you can obviously get through to the links to register for these events, and it'll also give you a bit more information about what each of them entail. Okay. And as I said before, both myself and Sam, we try as much as possible to talk about the Hub of Hope. It's obviously you can Google it, and it gets you through to a search engine which will basically you can put in a postcode or a topic of what your support service you're looking for, and it will give you a list of the services that are available in your area. Because as we found with a lot of these webinars and a lot of the support services, what's available in one area isn't necessarily available in a different county or a different town or a different part of the country. So by using this, you can put in the postcode and it will give you a better understanding of what support services are available to you locally. I think that's it, Sam, isn't it? Is there any more that I've missed that you can think of?
No, it's just a thank you from us from attending.
That's great. So yeah, by all means, if there's any additional information that you want to receive, then obviously there's an email address there and a telephone number. Yeah, any more questions that you would like to put to us, then please do. But if everyone is finished and there's no more questions, then all we have to say is good night and thank you very much for listening.